For now, let the motion be moved
Okay.
and seconded.
Okay. Sawa. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Yeah, it is true. I was wondering where I had gone out of order, Mr. Speaker, because I am moving the motion, and the motion needs to be seconded before we can discuss other issues about the TBO. Mr. Speaker, I first of all want to start by thanking this House on the reforms of the tea sector. Because when you look at the newspapers and the social media, it is as if this house is being sent a bill from the National Assembly to assent to. That is not true, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the truth is this bill emanated from this House. And at this juncture, Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank our colleague, the Honorable the Senator Cheriot of Kericho, who instigated the ad hoc committee on tea amendments. Mr. Speaker, while I served as the vice chair of that committee, we traversed this country, we talked to tea farmers in the whole republic, from Kericho, from Kisii, Kericho, we went to Murang'a, and we went to Embu. Mr. Speaker, we heard the cries of the coffee farmers, of the tea farmers of this country. And Mr. Speaker, it is as a result of those meetings that the ad hoc committee introduced a bill which was passed by this House in June 2019. Mr. Speaker, among the cries that we heard from the tea farmers was that this organization, the organization called KTDA, which manages their tea factories, had become so opaque that they did not know what was happening in the operations of the tea sector. Mr. Speaker, when we created, and I am happy and I thank God that I'm still alive, when we created the Kenya Tea Development Agency, from the then Kenya Tea Development Authority, it was a very fierce battle. Those who were in Parliament then, and I'm sure Honorable Orengo and Honorable Tangura will remember, it was a very fierce battle. I mark you, Mr. Speaker, most of us from tea-growing areas who were in the opposition, and we had to form an organization then called COTEPA, Coffee and Tea Parliamentary Association, which campaigned vigorously to have the establishment of the agency. The idea was then, Mr. Speaker, that the farmers, the tea farmers of this country, will have an organization which they own, which will be owned by the farmers, an organization which will be democratically, which will have democratic leadership, an organization, Mr. Speaker, which will be transparent, an organization which will eventually culminate in the tea farmers of this country earning livable income. Mr. Speaker, so many years after the agency was formed, that has not come to pass, unfortunately. And the reason, Mr. Speaker, we did realize when we went around the country that wherever we went, in Kisii, in Kericho, in Murang'a, in Embu, wherever we went and talked to the managers of the tea factories, it was very apparent that the management of tea factories was speaking for KTDA. So therefore, when we called the Kenya Tea Development Agency to come to the Senate committee during public participation, we voiced our concerns, because that is where we started losing it, Mr. Speaker. The farmers, the tea farmers of this country elect members amongst themselves to go and run their tea factories. But Mr. Speaker, what happens is that when these members are elected and go to the tea factories as directors of tea factories, then KTDA appropriates them. Then they become directors of KTDA. And therefore, that leaves the farmer with no voice. Mr. Speaker, this is what must change. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why we have this bill and the amendments is because we want to rectify that situation. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the National Assembly also, the members of the National Assembly. They did a lot of work. After the bill left here, they introduced quite a number of amendments. The Ministry of Agriculture also, through the CS, Peter Munya, also introduced a lot of amendments through the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank them because I do know the National Assembly did go out to meet farmers just like we had done. Mr. Speaker, what I do not want lost, the farmers must know that it is this House that realized way back in 2018, soon after we were elected to this House, that something was amiss in the tea sector. And it is this House that started the process of reforms in the tea sector. Mr. Speaker, when this House passed the motion to form the ad hoc committee on tea, that was the beginning of the tea reforms in this country. This, Mr. Speaker, I'm emphasizing because we are hearing so many masqueraders who are saying, no, we are the ones who are pushing, we've been to courts and so forth and so on. Mr. Speaker, the pilot of this project is none other than Senator Cheriot, who is with us in this House today. And the ad hoc committee, in that ad hoc committee, Mr. Chairman, I wish, although I know Senator Cheriot will be doing that, I wish to thank the members who were in that committee, who were elected by this House in that committee, starting with Cheriot, Senator Kangata, Senator Ongeri, and Senator Murkomen. Yes, Mr. Speaker, those senators were in the ad hoc committee because they did a sterling job. And that is the job, that is the process which has gotten us to where we are today. Mr. Speaker, reforms in the tea sector could not have come at a better time. It is at this time, Mr. Speaker, when the tea farmers in this country are crying loudly for these reforms. When we formed the agency, Mr. Speaker, and I didn't say earlier that our intention was that the management of the tea factories would be a democratic process. And it did start as such initially. But somewhere along the way, the process was changed so that today there are many farmers who do not even know who the directors in the tea factories are or how they were elected. That is a process, Mr. Speaker, which must be changed, and we want all small-scale tea farmers to feel ownership, the ownership of their tea factories. Mr. Speaker, turning to the way we sell our tea, Mr. Speaker, since time immemorial, our tea has been sold through the auction in Mombasa. And the auction is perhaps the best place for price realization. That's why you realize prices because of competition from different people who would want to buy your tea. But Mr. Speaker, that's not the only way. And Mr. Speaker, in speaking at the end of the year 2020, I think it is time we Kenyans and we Africans starting to look at the way we do our business. Mr. Speaker, who is it that's saying that our business is to be producers of raw materials for everybody else? Mr. Speaker, one of the amendments which caught my eye and which perhaps I would say as one of the most progressive is that the new bill will require that within 8 years, all managers, all tea managers would start a process of value addition to a minimum of 40% of the tea that they take to the auction. Mr. Speaker, that is progressive. I would have, Mr. Speaker, I would have said perhaps up to 60%. So who said, Mr. Speaker, that the tea farmer today in this country, while they are getting peanuts, there is no time you will sit in a restaurant in London and you are told that today, because there is glut in the tea, there's too much tea in the world, that the price of tea has reduced. That is not so, Mr. Speaker. Well, the tea farmers in the Republic and all over Africa are saddled with poverty. Mr. Speaker, the consumers, the middlemen, and those other business people are swimming in huge profits. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to encourage, and I am happy that we are going to be moving in that direction, in a direction of value addition. This is a thing that personally I have been championing since the days, and it was the vision of Cotepa when we formed the agency, that the agency would spearhead the process of meaningful value addition of our teas, so that we don't just become producers of raw materials and shifting the raw materials to other people, to the business people and brokers to make their money. Mr. Speaker, I wish at this juncture to request the members of this House to support these amendments. It is true, Mr. Speaker, for the last 2 days, so many members have called me or talked to me about their concerns about some of the amendments. And I've also received a lot of petitions from several stakeholders, including the Kenya Tea Growers Association, the KTDA itself, and another association called Small Scale Tea Growers, I think that's their name. So many. I received not less than 5 petitions, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, I have consulted, and we have consulted with the ministry, and it is agreed, Mr. Speaker, that as soon as this Senate passes this bill, and that the ministry will hearken to form the board, because it will hearken to form the board. Mr. Speaker, this bill, when it left this House, one of its key proponents was to form the Tea Board of Kenya. Tea Board used to exist. Tea Board used to function. But Mr. Speaker, somewhere along the line, we don't know what happened, Tea Board died. But now we want the Tea Board back. And one of the major reasons that I personally want the Tea Board back is because we expect that apart from the board regulating the behavior of the tea sector, we also expect, Mr. Speaker, that government will channel in enough funds in that board. It is the only way that government can assist the coffee farmers. Coffee farmers, Mr. Speaker, like all the other farmers, require government assistance at one point or another. And it is through the Tea Board, a body of government through which government can be called upon to assist the tea farmers. Mr. Speaker, we expect that the board that will be formed will be a professional board, and the board itself will be able to form a strong marketing division within the board to market our tea outside this country, so that our tea, not just in ready-made tea form, in value-added form. Our tea in packets and in tins. That is what we expect. For this country to make meaningful income, to get meaningful income from our products, from our agricultural products. Mr. Speaker, we must go through the value addition process. And then we require marketing outside this country, structured marketing outside this country, so that our farmers can earn what they should be adding. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot that we could say, but because I know there is a lot of interest in this matter, I would like to, at this juncture, to request my deputy chairman, who has been very ably handled matters of tea in our committee. I'd like to request Senator Wambua, Vice Chairman, Agriculture Committee, to second this bill, and then persuade our members, please, for the sake of our farmers, kindly let us pass this bill as it is. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker.
That which we have to do. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the adoption of the report on the amendments passed by the National Assembly to the T-Bill, Senate Bills number 36 of 2018. The Speaker, in support of the bill as amended, I want to thank my brother, my colleague, Senator Cheriot, for sponsoring this bill at the time that he did. The Speaker, we all know the circumstances then and now surrounding the tea sector, and especially our tea farmers. Mr. Speaker, it is very disheartening that we live in a country, Mr. Speaker, where tea farmers who till their farms for long hours every day and pick their tea constitute a portion of our population that can hardly afford a packet of instant tea. And yet they produce it on their farms And once it is processed, it becomes such a luxury that they cannot afford it. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Senate Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Fisheries, under the very able leadership of Senator Peter Ndwiga, for being very consistent, not just on the matter of tea, but all cash crops in this country, all value chains for all the crops grown in this country, to ensure that the benefit, if any, should go back to our farmers. Mr. Speaker, in supporting this bill as amended, I wish to remind members that at the core of this conversation, it is not the multinational tea factories, it is not the big business people that deal in tea, but at the core of this conversation, Mr. Speaker, it is the tea farmer in the slopes in Kisii, in Kericho, in Murang'a, and in all other parts of this country that grow tea. Mr. Speaker, the conversation must be guided by the best interest of that farmer. Mr. Speaker, tea and coffee have for the longest time been major foreign exchange earners for this country. But over the years, the frustration visited upon tea and coffee farmers by functionaries both in government and private sector have rendered investment in tea farming and in coffee farming not viable and not beneficial to the farmers. The Speaker, this bill, as amended, is a call to duty for senators in executing the devolved mandate of the Senate of Agriculture to ensure that our tea farmers suffer less if they must suffer. To ensure that, Mr. Speaker, that after we are done with these amendments in the tea bill, we shall move to the other value chains in the other crops, in coffee, in sugar, in maize. The Speaker, yours faithfully is sponsoring a bill in this Senate, the Dengo bill. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we need to do is to expand the food basket in this country so that we stop the conversation that certain regions in this country are the food baskets to feed this nation. Let us weave a lot more baskets in other regions to ensure that we give benefit to farmers across this country. Mr. Speaker, it has been said, and I believe it, that there are certain countries in this world where farmers are kings, where farmers are treated with dignity, where farmers, Mr. Speaker, are given express passes in train stations, in supermarkets, and the principle is they should go back home, till the land, and feed the nation. In this country, Mr. Speaker, we must begin that conversation. Mr. Speaker, in support of this bill as amended, we must all agree, Mr. Speaker, that AFA has miserably failed the regulation of crop chains in this country. Miserably failed. We must, Mr. Speaker, unpack AFA and make sure that we go to specific directorates for specific food chains. That way, Mr. Speaker, we shall be able to focus attention properly on crops and identify the needs and aspirations of farmers who deal with certain crops in this country. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge members, for now, and through these amendments,
Let us be seen to be speaking the voice of the tea farmer in this country. Let us, Mr. Speaker, support these amendments. And if, Mr. Speaker, there will be need to do further amendments to include other things, that can be done, Mr. Speaker, later. But for now, Mr. Speaker, I support the amendments to the tea bill and ask my colleagues to support. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question, which is that the National Assembly amendments to the tea bill, Senate Bill number 36 of 2018 be now considered. Senator Kibiru Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the amendments of the tea bill. And from the onset, Mr. Speaker, I say that I am a very good tea picker. At one point in time, I would do over 35 kilos a day, picking tea with the two leaves and the two leaves. Mr. Speaker, as I support the amendment, I did post yesterday in the social group of the Senate how tea has come and how the journey of the tea started. And like John Kamau put it yesterday, we are on our 117th year since we started growing tea in this country. Mr. Speaker, the article did give quite an elaborate way of how the farmers, through probably conspiracy, have been impoverished through this, through the chain, the value chain, Mr. Speaker. At one point in time, Mr. Speaker, in this House and in some of the forums that we have attended, it is said that from the buying center all the way to the auction, there are about almost 40 taxes that are levied on tea, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, as we move on and as I beseech my colleagues to come up and support this bill as amended by the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at, like Senator Abu have said, how we go back to areas of specialization, Mr. Speaker. We need the Tea Research Center, we need the Tea Board to do its work, because this country will never develop if we don't take care of the agriculture sector. Mr. Speaker, the other day when we went for breakfast, a round table breakfast meeting with the National Treasury, and they came up with a strategy of reviving the economy post-COVID, it was pointed out that a number of issues will be put into the agriculture sector. Mr. Speaker, there can never be a better way of starting these strategies and reviving the economy, the agriculture sector, than passing this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, as we do this, we would also want that when the board comes on board, especially the Tea Board comes on board, we need to put in now the correct regulations so that the issues of KTDA waking up one day, borrowing 4.6 billion, and then takes another 4.6 billion and goes and puts in some banks that corrupts 2 weeks later, should stop, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, without much ado, I would say that I stand with the farmers of tea in this country, and I will vote, and I beseech my colleagues to vote for the bill as amended. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Orengo.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to support this bill and appreciate the work of my senator, Senator Aaron Cheriot. A good idea always produces good ideas, not necessarily better ideas, because I think your idea was better in trying to deal with the sector and with this very important crop for us. And I also want to thank the committee, the ad hoc committee, for the work they did that ended up in the preparation of the bill that went to the National Assembly, and it has now come back to us. I think this is, to Senator Aaron Cheriot, I think this may be a lasting legacy for you, because there are a lot of times when people want to remember them with bills or statutes or questions they brought before this Parliament, I remember for my colleague in Siaya, Senator Donde, the Donde bill became the brand for Mheshimiwa Donde wherever he goes, even today. For the late J.M. Kariuki, it was the Hire Purchase Act, what it did in respect of the amendment. In fact, it was the first bill drawn by a private member that ever hit the floor of Parliament in our history. I want to categorize the work of the ad hoc committee and the work that has been done by Senator Cheriot in that regard as historic. Mr. Speaker, there was one time I was in a delegation that went to Mumias, and in that delegation we had a member of parliament from Trans Nzoia, and you know Trans Nzoia is all about maize, and if you go to Mumias, it's all about sugar. So all these crops are very important depending on the areas where you come from, and definitely I hope that we are going to take up on the footsteps of Senator Cheriot and correct the other vagaries that are confronting the other crops, particularly the ones that I have mentioned. But on that trip, I remember a member of parliament, quite out of kindness of heart, was telling people in Mumias that farmers should get higher prices for maize. But of course in Mumias, if you talk about increasing the prices of maize, that would mean they will pay more for maize or maize flour. And they're not quite happy with that one. So sometimes these messages, depending on where you are, they can be quite mixed. Mr. Speaker, I think the primary person to support is the farmer. The primary, and I want to repeat this because we got many players in the tea industry, but we have to protect the farmer. And in the many times I've gone to Central Province and Mount Kenya area and in Kericho, Limuru, and other areas, the plight of the farmers has always been the primary concern, because in the legacy and the structures we had before, it would appear that farmers were just beasts of burden. You produce a crop, you get little for it, but other brokers and middlemen make a lot of money out of it. And I think for all of us, in looking at this bill, I pray to you, think of the farmer first. Yes. Because if you think of anybody else, imagine there was no tea to sell in Kenya. Imagine if farmers get frustrated and they started uprooting their tea. Would you be talking about auctioneers or about brokers or about packers? The primary concern should be with the farmer. And I want to say this, that, you know, we should not be scared, even if Kenya overproduces tea. In Brazil, one of the things that they do, they all the time have an oversupply of coffee and they release it depending on the prices, but they keep their quota. So if the farmer is not able to produce enough so that Kenya can keep its quota, then everything else that we are doing can go to naught. Even with the oil producers, the starting point is to protect the oil producer, be it a nation or a state, but you start with the producer. So I plead, because it's going to come to you, and I know one of these days I'm going to ask for support for those who grow sugarcane, to support the sugarcane farmer. Before you come even before the mill, before you come to the packer, before you come to the person who owns a warehouse, I think if you turn the priority on its head and begin to support the warehouse owner or the packer more than the farmer, I think it will be very terrible for us. Sometimes in the past, when I used to live in Kericho, you see all those highland, African highlands, very big signboards, Brook Bond. But you go to those farms, the way they were making sure that they get the profit, how people who are working in those farms, you know, the terms and conditions of their employment, how they were looked after, their care and welfare. It was zero. But when the ordinary farmer in Kipsigis started growing his own tea, you could see a little difference. And by the way, the best tea does not come necessarily from the large-scale owners. Some of the best tea comes from the simple farmer with 5 acres, with 10 acres. And this is the person we want to protect in this bill. Mr. Speaker, I know there's a lot of problem in these amendments that have been brought by the National Assembly. And more particularly, I wanted to talk about the new impositions that have been placed against the players in the tea industry. And those are found if you have the bill from the amended bill from the National Assembly from clause 24D or even 24B. It is requiring registration, for example, of a warehouse operator. What is wrong with requiring a warehouse operator in relation to a tea to be registered as such? I see no problem with that. And then there's the registration of tea packers. If the farmer, in order to survive in this competitive industry, has been a member of some cooperative or some organization, registration of a tea packers, I don't see anything wrong with this. And then registration of a tea buyer, that is found in clause 24F, registration of tea brokers, that is found in clause 24H, and then the registration of a management agent, and also registration of tea auction organizers in paragraph 24K. No, I know some tea auctioneers. I know how they do their business. And you know, they do everything in the book to make sure that they enhance their profits. And if they are not licensed and managed properly, then that is where the farmer is going to lose a lot of money. And those who are calling upon us to make those who do packing and auctioneering become tea agents, I think you are trying to make sure that the toil and blood of those who actually every morning go to the farm are in vain. I think that would not be right. And the provisions and the interpretation clause, Mr. Speaker, you find the definition of who an auction organizer is. And I think this definition is also very important, because sometimes you have players like people who trade with the government, who do business with the government. Even we had people doing business with KEMSA, and after they did business with KEMSA, their names disappeared. We don't know who they are. Their names cannot be disclosed. So I don't see what is wrong in giving a definition of who auctioneer organizer is, which it says it means a person, company, or firm established for the purpose of organizing tea auctions. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? To be a lawyer, I need to satisfy some qualification and requirements. To be a doctor, to be an architect, even to be a member of parliament. By the way, if you forgot, in the Constitution it defines who can become a member of parliament and how to become a member of parliament, or how not to become a member of parliament. Now, what about the so-called auctioneer, auction organizer? Why would the law run away from defining who that person is, so that that small farmer in the value-added chain can understand who they are dealing with, up to the person who is making that English tea from Kenyan tea in London? Why would the farmer in Limuru not be able to know all these persons and the qualifications? And by the way, Mr. Speaker, if you're in the world of betting on horses, there's a street here in Nairobi where some people who know how to do this business, they would know when the horse was born, where the mother of the little horse came from, and so on and so on, the entire family tree. So, so this is a useful provision in this T-bill. And Mr. Speaker, I know today we don't have all the time in the world, but I would beseech those that are probably not inclined to pass this bill. I would appeal to you that we pass this bill. There are a lot of things that can be done later in terms of enforcement, implementation, a lot of things which are not clear. When it comes to the other players in the sector, they can be covered through the regulations. But I think that if you kill, because this one will forever be known as Chariot Bill, if you kill it at this stage or try to take it to mediation, I think we'll go to the next election without a T-bill. And that would be a wrong mistake to do. And particularly for the first time, when the other house is agreeing with us, and you want us to go back there when they have agreed with us, I think it will be like we have lost sight, and we need our eyes to be opened. With those few remarks, I thank you, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Honorable Senator, I see a lot of interest, and this is our bill, and you'll have more time also to discuss. So I'll give 5 minutes each so that we are able to move faster. Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to, at the outset, congratulate, I don't know if he's my younger brother or my age mate, but Senator Aaron is younger by a year or two, for this landmark legislation that he has brought to this House that will be forever remembered. I want to thank also the committee led by Senator Ndwiga, who has given us a brief exposition of the history of this struggle that has taken place both in this House and outside this House. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank as well, even before I go into the details of this bill, because many people have lobbied. I think Senator Aaron, he tweeted earlier for people to lobby their senators. And I received numerous calls and SMSs. I want to thank Juan James, who says he's a voter in Nairobi from Nyeri, Alice Kihara from Embakasi, my teacher at the university, Dr. Kones, I think is the same one who vied, from Bomet. He taught me maths at the University of Nairobi. And also Mudhoni Waithanji. And what I did, I called back one of them to find out if they know what they're talking about and asked them what it is in this bill that they actually like. And they were clear. Because you know somebody can say, just pass it, it'll help us. And they're not a farmer. They don't know what this does. Mr. Speaker, my county doesn't grow tea, but we're the largest consumers of tea locally. In Nairobi, we're the largest consumers of everything. But Mr. Speaker, looking at this bill, it speaks to a lot that needs to be done. Based on the economics of our country, agriculture, which produces almost 33% of GDP, according to the World Bank report, Mr. Speaker, of the Kenya Economic Update, we're talking about 31.4% of reduction of rural poverty and 56% of the total labor force. But the disconnect, which I know many people don't realize, is that despite those numbers, the contribution to revenue, the agriculture is still below 10%. And why is that, Mr. Speaker? It is because we have not properly addressed the issues of value addition. That people are busy, but they're not actually creating revenue and creating wealth in this country, and other people are creating the wealth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unless we decisively deal with the issues of value addition, Kenyans will be busy in farms, clogging up what we call, non-meaningful GDP, but not increasing revenue in this country, and that is what we need to address. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the level of poverty by people who are engaged in agriculture, it is extremely high. You know, the normal tea farmer cannot be compared to the person who's dealing in those auctions or the people in the, in KTDA and these organizations who don't even grow a single crop of tea, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is the same with maize. It is the same with coffee. And Mr. Speaker, I will tell you, and you know from where you're from, that one of the biggest causes of poverty in Western region, for instance, is maize farming. And we need radical leadership who will address the root cause of these issues. Mr. Speaker, many times we are just like cashiers, and I know because I farm maize in Kitale. And throughout the year, you're putting in money, and at the end of the year, what you get cannot relate to it. Look at sugarcane, a big cause of poverty. The most fertile parts of this country is Western. But all those farmers are extremely poor. Unless somebody actually tells us what we need to do properly, unless we as leaders say the truth, why do we have to farm sugarcane the way we do in Western, yet a farmer in Brazil will farm his sugarcane. Sugar will live there, it will come to the port of Mombasa, they'll pay whatever taxes they pay, comes all the way to the gate of Mumias and is cheaper than the sugar, an equivalent kg from Mumias right there, Mr. Speaker. These radical questions must be answered. Because, Mr. Speaker, we cannot do the same thing the same way over years and expect different results. That is the definition of madness. So I hope as we pass this bill that we shall also have a radical view at all these other crops and agriculture as a sector to ask these radical questions and to transform it, but ultimately with our mind at the common mwananchi, the farmer, the smallholder farmer, and then later we can deal with those middlemen and the cartels. Mr. Speaker, I was just joking with Senator Ndwiga that indeed in any society you do need the brokers, and Senator Aaron Cheriot will agree with me. You do need brokers to some extent. In the animal kingdom, Mr. Speaker, if there were no brokers, then lions would be eating grass because there's no gazelle. You need a middleman in between the lion and the grass, Mr. Speaker. And in the same breath, even in this one, but let's regulate them. Let's regulate what they do, but our main focus must be the farmer. So I want to affirm all of those who've called me and those who've lobbied that we support these amendments. Of course, Mr. Speaker, we must state that I think it is very untidy that the National Assembly has amended the entire bill. These are almost 30 amendments. I don't know how we will vote at them. It's like they've rewritten the bill, but for the sake of the common farmer, for the sake of the tea farmers all over the country, not just in Rift Valley or Central, but all over the country, wherever they do it. In Kisii, in Nyamira, Senator Mugeni brought issues of tea. You know, in Western, in Vihiga.
Senator Haniri.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to add my voice. And I just want to make it clear, because there's a notion out there that we are passing the National Assembly bill. It is not so. I want it to be very clear that this was a Senate bill sponsored by Senator Cheriot, and it was a product of an ad hoc committee which I had the privilege to sit on. And therefore, what we are debating today is the amendments that were made by the National Assembly on our bill. Mr. Speaker, I will begin by saying that this is a day that I personally have really longed for, and on behalf of my farmers. Mr. Speaker, the hard work that we put in as an ad hoc committee, the hard work that Senator Cheriot put in to develop the bill is coming to fruition. And I want to urge senators, particularly those who don't come from tea growing areas, to listen to us senators who represent tea farmers. We are the ones who know precisely what our farmers are going through. Mr. Speaker, this bill is going to be an early Christmas for our tea farmers. I want to plead with you, my colleagues, let's give the farmers, the tea farmers, an early Christmas gift. Mr. Speaker, for years, the cartels in the sectors have thrived on the hard work of the farmers. The cartels have enriched themselves while the farmers who toil in the farm continue to languish in poverty. This bill is going to be the game changer. We may not agree 100% with the amendments that were made by the National Assembly, but I want to plead that we do not want to lose the gains that we are already getting just because we don't agree with one or two amendments that were made by the National Assembly. Let's pass the amendments as they are. Let's get the assent of the President on the bill so that the farmers can start benefiting from the gains. So then if there are any other amendments, and if there are people who are uncomfortable with the little amendments here and there, it can always be corrected, Mr. Speaker. They can always be further amendments. But we cannot afford to delay this any further. We have to pass it today. There was wisdom, Mr. Speaker, in you and the leadership of this House classifying this as an urgent matter and therefore calling for this special sitting. And therefore we cannot just wish that away. We have timelines. We have to pass this bill. Mr. Speaker, when I was growing up, tea farming was very profitable to the tea farmers, Mr. Speaker. My father was a tea farmer. I inherited the tea farm, and I'm a tea farmer by extension, Mr. Speaker. I must declare my interests, and I can tell you it is not the same. When we were going around with the Senator Cheriot ad hoc committee, we met so many farmers in various areas in the country. And Mr. Speaker, farmers have reached a stage where they are now uprooting their teas. So many people have uprooted. Even me, I have uprooted part of the tea I had grown because it was not profitable. It was not viable anymore. Mr. Speaker, by passing this bill, we will revive the Tea Board of Kenya and the Tea Research Foundation. And Mr. Speaker, this will ensure efficiency and transparency in licensing of the tea brokers. Mr. Speaker, by passing this bill, we will ensure that buyers and brokers will pay farmers within 14 days of selling the tea, as opposed to what it is now, Mr. Speaker, when they pay at their own whims. Mr. Speaker, by passing this bill, we'll be abolishing majority of the taxes that are levied on the tea farmer. At the moment, Mr. Speaker, the tea farmer pays up to, was it 42 taxes? 42 taxes, Mr. Speaker. How do you get profit when you pay 42 taxes? Mr. Speaker, listen to those of us who represent farmers. We played with you. Stand with us as we fight for our farmers so that we ensure that we give our farmers an early Christmas gift. Mr. Speaker, I see my time is up.
Senator Ephraim Maina.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this bill. And as I support this bill, I want to say, let us all remember the history of this country. Let us remember where Kenya was when Kenya was strong in its agriculture, when the coffee farmers, when the tea farmers, when the maize farmers, when the sugar farmers, when the cattle farmers used to have their gains. They used to have justice for what they produce. Mr. Speaker, some of us who come from tea growing areas, I want to tell you it's a misery today when you meet farmers and they give you their stories. In Nyeri, we have had a case where some young man was captured on the social media, uprooting tea. And let me say, if you look at tea farmers, they grow tea in the whole of their small chamber, the small scale farmers. 4 acres, it is totally tea at the house. And Mr. Speaker, when tea prices started collapsing, and they collapsed not because tea is not bringing money in the world market, they collapsed because, Mr. Speaker, there is a system that came around in this country. KTDA was working before, but for some reason today, farmers' money, farmers' gains have been invested in unproductive areas, and the farmer ends up getting nothing. Today, as we speak, this year, the farmers got literally little to nothing for their tea. Not to talk about the miserable coffee farmers who have today given up and they are living in misery. A crop that is making money, our neighboring countries, Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, are making good money in these crops, tea and coffee, for example. Kenya, you can see all the silos built in this country by, if I may say, because it's the truth, by the colonialists, for storing grains, storing maize, storing wheat. Today, Kenya is importing maize. But coming to the tea, we have an opportunity, and I'm glad this House is the one which came up with this bill. We have an opportunity to safeguard the tea industry. And I appeal to this House that let us pass this bill with the amendment thereof. If tomorrow anybody thinks of anything better to bring in, they can bring it. But for now, let us pass it as it is quickly so that at least there will be something that the Kenyan farmer in this country can hear, can see some hope of tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, let us not mince words. Things don't just happen. Why are tea farmers in a desperate situation they are in? Why have tea farmers been impoverished? Why have the coffee farmers been impoverished? Why are the dairy industry farmers not getting the real return? Mr. Speaker, I want to say Kenya must look at itself. And this country, I dare say, COVID or no COVID, if we were growing today fruits, if we were growing maize, if we were growing tea in large quantities and the coffee, we would still be selling and doing well. But now our economy is hard hit, and we will have to look at agriculture. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, for the tea farmers, this day is a great day, and I want to assure them that looking at the members in this House, I have no doubt they have the sympathies of the lives of our common people, and this bill will be passed. And Mr. Speaker, let me add that
Senator. Senator, the interests are so many. The interests are so many. Your time is up. At least you have made your point. Senator Mtula Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise to... Yes, sorry. Speaker, could you...
Senator Maina, take your seat.
Yes, he's...
I thought you were calling me.
No.
No.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise to support the amendments and the motion. Mr. Speaker, it would have been nice if, and I'm speaking now to the chair, that if members had been taken through this, because there were concerns, and some of them are genuine concerns, and there are lots of amendments like Senator Sakaja has mentioned, and it's unusual for a bill to have so many amendments, but taking them through would have been helpful. But we trust you, the chairman, that when you say some of the issues that are raised can be addressed later, it's not the promise that Senator, not Kipchumba, the former majority leader, mentioned here when we were opposing the audit bill. Mr. Speaker, I have had the opportunity of going to a place in Chinga. Chinga Tea Factory is in Nyeri. And I saw the tea, and I saw the roads. Somebody mentioned that the cess that is collected by county governments is supposed to improve the roads where tea farms are. When we were growing up, now counties are apportioning that money to do their usual funny things. But we must go back there where they collect cess from tea farmers, supposed to improve the infrastructure for those roads. Because when I traveled around Nyeri, the roads around the tea farms were good. The second thing is we are supporting this. Some of us who don't grow coffee, and please listen to tea and listen to us. Because Senator Wambua is going to bring a bill about something strategic about Kitui, Meru, Makueni, etc., etc. You will be surprised that Mboni constituency, where I come from, grows possibly the best coffee in Kenya. Possibly the best coffee. I have 8 factories in the village. But those persons who grow coffee, which was grown by my grandfather, and my father asked me and made sure that I undertake that coffee will never be uprooted. Where we buried him is surrounded by coffee. We are supporting this so that the questions surrounding tea and coffee can also be addressed. The cartels that exist in tea, they also exist in coffee. possibly worse in coffee. I went to Stockholm with members here, and we sat in a Starbucks restaurant. The most expensive coffee was up in the shelves in Starbucks in Switzerland. But yet the farmer here is so poor and miserable. I went with Senator Omogeni recently, and condolences for the loss of the governor, because at that time we were questioning the governor about something. But we happened to be in a tea area. Let me tell you, a person who was disabled was being forced to take his tea 5 kilometers away because the board was quarreling. We know the problem about tea and coffee. It is the auction. And the question I was asking even Senator Cheruiyot this morning was whether or not the auction that is proposed in Clause 24 here by the National Assembly is going to address the question of the cartels who have invaded the tea auction to the detriment of poor, miserable farmers. We are also supporting this, and I'm glad this has been brought by Senator Cheruiyot to explain that even in other discourses that are going to be in the country for future, there's no law that will be perfect, Senator Cheruiyot. So when we come to you and ask you to support something else, please remember that we are supporting this not because it is perfect, but because for now, it is the best. But, Mr. Speaker, why is it? What is it? Is this law going to guarantee the small-scale farmer what we want? Is it lack of laws that has caused this problem?
What's your point of order, Senator Murkomen?
Oh.
I hope you hold Senator Mutula's time, Mr. Speaker, because it's what I'm going to raise is a bit more, looks like trivial, but it's important. For our colleagues who are in this Zoom, Mr. Speaker, who are coming in virtually, there should be a minimum level of decorum. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we project people here in the Senate driving inside cars, and at the same time we are watching Mutula across the country and other people speaking, you must enforce, if someone has to appear virtually, there must be some level of seated somewhere, stoic, wearing a tie or properly dressed, Mr. Speaker, you know, so that then we don't distract us. We are being distracted and the country is being distracted because people will be wondering, there are people in the Senate, there are some others in the streets of Nairobi watching proceedings from outside, Mr. Speaker, and confusing the public.
That's why I've not called them. Proceed, Senator, but we are working on it.
Mr. Speaker, I was talking about political goodwill because I think the part of the problem in all cash crops in Kenya is political goodwill. If there's political goodwill in maize, sugarcane, coffee, Mr. Speaker, the poor farmer is going to benefit. I just mentioned the question of Kisii, Nyamira, where we went to a factory, not a factory, where we saw for ourselves the problems that arise when we don't protect our poor farmers. Mr. Speaker, I want to finish by saying that a time has come, and both Senator Orengo and Senator Sakaja mentioned Brazil. By the way, Brazil grows Robusta coffee. It's not the best. But they market it as if the world depends on it. Even Colombia. Kenya grows the best tea and best coffee. Our tea is blended in Dubai and mixed with other tea that is not of high grade and then sold at a very high price. Mr. Speaker, when I went to Nyeri, I discovered that the tea that is packaged in Chinga Tea Factory in Nyeri is not even sold in Kenya. It's sold abroad because it's packaged on site. Can we also benefit from first grade tea? I mean, what is that so much to ask, Chairman? That we have to take Mbuni, Nescafe and those things because it's bad coffee? No. We must benefit from it, but Mr. Speaker, we must support this because this is one of the best avenues to ensure that the poor Kenyans can get something into their pockets. 2 leaves and a bud must make sense, but an ordinary farmer in Kenya who's growing tea or coffee is miserable because of cartels and pricing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker, like my colleagues who've spoken have done, I want to start, Mr. Speaker, by congratulating Senator Cheruiyot, who, Mr. Speaker, came up with the ad hoc committee and the bill.
and for the teamwork of all the senators who worked in that team, Mr. Speaker, in that ad hoc committee. And I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, that the bill was so popular that it did not suffer the usual problems that our bills go through in National Assembly. I know the work that Senator Cheriot had to go through from the background, lobbying in the National Assembly. Otherwise, his bill, Mr. Speaker, would have been declared money bill, like many beautiful bills from this House have been declared money bills. Mr. Speaker, this bill is for hustler tea growers. It's for the small man and small woman in the very far-flung areas of our country. Mr. Speaker, it is for those who have been forgotten for a long period of time in the tea sector. And for that reason, this bill deserves our support. Mr. Speaker, I am a member of the Agriculture Committee, and I must confess here that, led by our chairman, we had to go through this bill, scrutinize. Mr. Speaker, I hasten to say Senator Kabaka was also instrumental in this committee, who, Mr. Speaker, we are going to bury tomorrow, and we eulogize him for the good work he did in the Agriculture Committee where we served together. And Mr. Speaker, we agree with those who have raised the issues concerning the bill out there, including the Kenya Tea Development Authority, KTDA, including, Mr. Speaker, these are the private, Mr. Speaker, private processors who have raised some certain issues. We agree that there are issues that require to be seen. In fact, even the role of the county government, Mr. Speaker, needs to be enhanced. We know that there are certain shortcomings that are in the bill. But, Mr. Speaker, we have consulted here with our colleagues when we came here this afternoon and reasoned that, Mr. Speaker, because of the process that our bill goes through, we first secure and save the benefits that have come to the tea farmer now, and, Mr. Speaker, then revisit the bill when it has passed and see which other amendments we can make to make it even a far much better idea, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we are doing this. For those who have concerns out there, those interested in the reforms of the tea sector, who are worried about the provisions that have been put in place, we have said when the board is back to place, we as a House will again, led by Senator Cheriot or the Agriculture Committee, my chair, Senator Ndwika, we can come up with those amendments, listen to them, introduce those amendments by the time we come back, February, March, then relook at what we want to improve and make even the tea bill even more, far much better. So we are doing this in the knowledge that we have an opportunity again to revisit the issues that are here. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we need to do away completely with the AFA and the Crops Act, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that was a very bad experiment that has affected the tea sector. It has worsened the sugar sector, Mr. Speaker. As a member of Agriculture Committee, we get so many petitions about sugar. And we were in Kisumu the other day with all the senators from that region. Mr. Speaker, the worst part is even the grain sector, Mr. Speaker. It's been affected so badly. You are a maize farmer and you come from maize farming county. So we are going as an Agriculture Committee to work with all the senators who have brought bills, but also as Agriculture Committee, we unpack this Crops Act and go back, Mr. Speaker, to the institutions that we had that are sector-wise, that can give concentration on the various crops, Mr. Speaker, that can benefit the people of the country. Once again, I want to thank Senator Cheriot and thank my colleagues who are in this chamber, who have stood with common Mwananchi, the farmers, and I tell, without any fear of contradiction, every other citizen of this republic and stakeholders that we have agreed as a Senate that your cries are not in vain. We are going to sit down together again and revisit this bill to make it even better and to accommodate your concerns. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also stand to support this bill. Saluting Senator Cheriot for having brought a motion to which we all spoke to that culminated into this bill. Mr. Speaker, as we do so, I start where the distinguished Senator for Elgeyo Marakwet left, that there are still people out there who are concerned that their views and issues have not been brought on board. KTDA is grumbling I know that is a popular view that they should be reformed, and reforms are important, but it's also important that when you are reforming an institution, you listen to them. Tea, Mr. Speaker, is arguably the only crop in this country that is still functioning in its production, its processing, its sales, and in terms of returns. The coffee sector is dead, or literally on the deathbed. Sugar is gone. Maize is gone. Pyrethrum is gone. Name it, Mr. Speaker. So as we move this tea bill, it's incumbent upon the government, and Senator Ndwiga, I don't know if he's left or he's still here, has been on the front line in championing issues of farmers. Mr. Speaker, as we talk about tea today, the cereals boards are not open to take in the farmers' crop for a harvest that started in late August. As we speak here, Mumias is dead. Nzoia is mahututi, and many others. As we speak here, Mr. Speaker, the coffee farmers are suffering. So as we support this process of change, let it not be change for one sector only. And I think those of us who were in the 10th Parliament stand indicted for having blindly passed the AFA bill that consolidated all agricultural laws into one without a proper transition, proper management, proper structures, and AFA just became a monster. So deconstructing AFA, Mr. Speaker, is the way to go. We want to see the Sugar Act. We want to see the Pyrethrum Act back. We want to see all acts of parliament that were there that made the nourishment of crop farming in this country back on the shelves of our laws. Equally important, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that agriculture is devolved. I've seen a memorandum somewhere, Senator Cheriot, from the governors, COG, complaining that their views were also not taken on board sufficiently or at all. So as we pass this, we must know that legislation cannot be cast in stone. It's a process. And we can continue improving where it is necessary to make things work better. So passing this bill should not be an end but the beginning of positive reforms in the tea sector that will make it possible for farmers to get just returns from their sweat. They wake up in the morning, toil and moil in the sun, in the heat. Some are bitten by snakes in the tea farms, and at the end of the day, they end up getting very little. This has to be stopped. This has to be checked. This has to be reformed. So I support the bill, Mr. Speaker, and urge the Committee of Agriculture to enjoin the proponent of this bill to continue looking at how we can make things better for the tea farmer in this country. Thank you.
Senator Kangata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank members of the Ad Hoc Committee on Tea, which generated this bill. I was a member of that committee. We went around to various places, including Murang'a County, at a place called Gatanga Constituency, Gatora Shopping Center, and we visited one tea factory. Mr. Speaker, sir, the reason why I am supporting this bill is because, one, tea is one of the most important exchange earners for this country. Currently, money sent from diaspora is #1 earner of dollar money, but #2 is tea. And tea has been at #2 spot for the longest period of time. Mr. Speaker, sir, we all know the importance of foreign exchange. And therefore, once we ensure this crop is supported, our farmers are supported, our shilling will continue being stabilized, and therefore, we need to support this crop. It employs millions of Kenyans. It creates value addition in agriculture. As correctly stated by my colleagues, we have had a situation where coffee collapsed, pyrethrum collapsed. We had a situation where sugar collapsed. It is only tea that is still going strong. But now, once we bring these reforms, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have no doubt tea is going to become the very and most important crop, not only for Kenya, but I would imagine an important contribution to the growth of Africa, Mr. Speaker, sir. Murang'a County, Mr. Speaker, sir, has 10 tea factories serving the small-scale farmers. We start from tea factories in Madhyoya all the way to Gatanga constituency. They employ thousands of people. They create a market for our small-scale farmers, and therefore, it was very important on our part to come up and support this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill addresses several problems which tea farmers has been experiencing. Number one, the overtaxation of the tea farmer. Tea farmer currently pays almost 41, 42 different types of taxes. Number two, the cess that is collected by the counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, various counties from the regions where farmers grow teas, they have been taking tea cess instead of reinvesting that money to build good roads in tea growing regions. They have been expending that money with other works and making roads in the tea growing areas to become deplorable, to become neglected. And therefore, this bill is going to address that problem. The third issue is the issue of tea board. Mr. Speaker, sir, few years ago, we created a body called AFA. It collapsed several parastatals into one entity called AFA. But now we are creating tea board to specifically deal with issues of tea. Number four, the issue of auction. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have had a situation where we have one auction at Mombasa, but a parallel market has been created outside that auction. That problem is going to be remedied by compelling all tea to be sold through the auction. Mr. Speaker, sir, that parallel market of tea has made prices at the tea auction to become depressed because buyers are not going into the auction. They are preferring what we call private treaties. As a result, government has been losing taxes. Those transactions, the so-called direct sales, are opaque. We do not know how much they fetch for KTDA. So therefore, let us take AOLT into the auction. The auction is going to become more vibrant. It's going to create more employment. It's going to ensure the market is open and transparent. Finally, the issue of payment period. This bill, once passed, is going to compel farmers to be paid within 14 days from the date when the auction deal was finalized. Currently, it takes so many days, notwithstanding an auction deal has been finalized.
Okay, I'll seek your indulgence because I can see the time is not, I'll reduce to 3 minutes. Senator Faki.
I pray that you give me more time because I come from the county that hosts the auction. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to congratulate my colleague, Senator Cheriot, and the Committee of Agriculture led by Senator Ndwiga for this very important bill. And from the outset, I want to make it clear that I'm not opposed to the farmers, tea farmers in Kenya, gaining what they are supposed to gain for their hard-earned crops. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are several issues that I want to draw your attention to in this bill that was passed by the National Assembly. First and foremost is Section 24L. 24L is on the auction process, Mr. Speaker, sir. The proposal, the Act provides that all tea has to be taken through the auction in Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, sir, the demand at the moment and the supply of the tea in Mombasa are at variance. The supply is more than the demand that is coming up in the auction, and therefore, if we allow all the teas to be sold through the auction, the market will be flooded, and therefore the prices will come down, and this will adversely affect the farmers. At the moment, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are two options. You sell through private treaty or the private arrangement, and you can also sell through the auction. The private sales, Mr. Speaker, sir, complement the auction, because in the auction sales, not all teas are able to be taken during the auction, and therefore the surplus is sold through private arrangements. Mr. Speaker, sir, it will also be unconstitutional for somebody to be forced to sell his produce through the auction, yet he can get a similar or a higher price through a private arrangement. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, the fact that all teas will be sold through the auction will adversely affect the industry, because there are special teas, such as teas that are sold directly to the buyers, who pay better prices than what is paid for at the auction. Mr. Speaker, sir, the second issue is with regard to the levy, the tea levy, Mr. Speaker, which will also affect our teas because it will make it more expensive for the Kenyan tea compared to the other teas. Mr. Speaker, sir, the auction covers 10 countries. It covers Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, Congo, Ethiopia, Malawi, Mozambique, and Madagascar. All those 10.
Your time is up, sorry. Okay, just wind up, please. 1 minute.
All the 10 countries, Mr. Speaker, sir, are served by the Mombasa tea auction. So any messing up with the auction, Mr. Speaker, sir, is likely to affect the country, and this will contribute to the decline in the purchase of tea in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, as you have limited my time, I want to say that the auction in Mombasa covers about 75% of the tea that is sold in the country. The 15% is sold by the private treaties, and the other remaining 5 or 10% is sold by the packers within the country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, it will not affect much if the two systems are allowed to be used in the sale of tea. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to oppose these amendments that have been done to the bill. Unless those issues are addressed, I will not support the amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Milgo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this chance to also support this bill as amended. I'm supporting it as a senator that comes from the largest tea growing area, Bomet County. 3/4 of Bomet County grows tea, and I'm one of the greatest farmers as well. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me thank Senator Cheriot for coming up with this bill together with the Agriculture Committee led by Senator Ndwika for the wonderful job they've done. Mr. Speaker, sir, tea has been a very important crop not only to our farmers but to Kenya as well, being one of the greatest earner, and therefore has actually added on to the economy of this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the past when we grew up, tea used to play a very important role in ensuring that there was put food on the table, school fees was paid, and very many other services that were required at the home. Mr. Speaker, sir, apart from this, tea had even been proven to be medicinal. However, of late there has been very many challenges, particularly when it comes to auctioning tea. Mr. Speaker, sir, to the extent that
we have very many farmers even taking to uproot tea because of the fact that they have been very impoverished after taking tea as a major crop. Mr. Speaker, sir, many of our youth, we've been encouraging them to take up agriculture as a business. And many of them, like in my county, took up tea planting. But then right now, they are actually worse than they started because of the many cartels. The major challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that the cartels along the value chain. And in this case, I think Article 24, that is dealing with auctioning, is very important because the farmers ought to know who are the brokers, who are the packers, who are actually the operators in the warehouses. And then in this case, I think that will go a long way to ensure that farmers are even brought to light. As things are standing right now, farmers do not even know who are the brokers for their tea in the factory. And in addition to that, many a times there is a lot of taxation. Many of our farmers are so worried that this tea has been taxed to the extent that they earn very meager amount of money from this particular crop, and this is not even enough to recoup what they have been put in terms of fertilizers, in terms of labor, and in this case, it is just like a...
Okay, your time is up. Senator Mogeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity, but also to stand up and mourn with my people of Nyamira for the loss of our governor, Mzee John Obira Nyagarama, who has had a very successful career in the tea industry. My condolences to the widow, family, and the entire people of Nyamira County. Mr. Speaker, if I was to speak candidly without blinking an eye, the people I represent here from the county of Nyamira want legislation that will regulate the tea industry to be enacted as soon as yesterday. So I fully support wholeheartedly the recommendations and amendments that have been proposed by the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I did mention sometime that I had gone to a village in Nyeri called Kiaruhiu, and the farmers there told me that their priority at that time was to see to it that the government was coming up with legislation that will spur up the tea industry and that will make tea farming to be meaningful. Mr. Speaker, I support these amendments because for the first time in the history of this country, Mr. Speaker, there is a proposal in clause 24D to create a tea fund that will assist in price stabilization of farmers. I don't know whether my colleague senators understand the import of that clause. Mr. Speaker, what that means is that maybe from next financial year, the government will be setting aside a fund that can be used as a top-up to pay farmers when the prices are so low. Mr. Speaker, like in the last financial year, in Nyamira, and we have about 6 factories. We are constructing one, so we are going to have about 7 next year. My farmers earned between 9 shillings and 15 shillings from bonus. That is peanuts. That cannot support peasant farmers in getting enough money to pay school fees, take care for their needs. So the fact that there is this proposal in this bill to create a tea fund should elicit support from majority of our senators. Mr. Speaker, brokers, and that will be my final point, brokers who have been the biggest beneficiaries from the tea farmers, their fee, their earning has been reduced from 1.5% to 0.5%. And who is going to benefit? It is the farmer. So I want to urge my colleagues from non-tea growing regions to stand with us for the benefit of the poor farmers whom we represent in this House. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the amendments and the bill itself, Mr. Speaker, and congratulate the committee and congratulate Senator Cheriot and the rest of the senators who have participated both in the committee and in the subcommittee, Mr. Speaker, in the ad hoc committee. Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest problems that we have had in this country, and especially in marketing or sale of cash crops, Mr. Speaker, that have a value chain which does not necessarily require local sales but benefit more when sales are global, Mr. Speaker, is lack of transparency. And this is what has ailed most of the industries, including the tea industry, Mr. Speaker. And unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the value chain in sale of cash crops, and tea being one of the major ones, is a top-down value chain, Mr. Speaker, where the biggest beneficiaries are the top and the lowest at the bottom, Mr. Speaker. And I don't want to be repetitive, but all of us have had this experience, Mr. Speaker. I once visited a marketer in the UK who happens to hail from one of the towns in Asia, a place called Kerala, where they also grow tea. Mr. Speaker, in his whole warehouse, he had gunias or sacks and sacks of tea. But the ones he held most is Kenyan tea, Mr. Speaker, which indeed, not only other than blending together with other teas, they also repackage under foreign names. Mr. Speaker, I was interested and amused to see that a tea called Lipton, which sells greatly in the international market, is actually Kenyan tea. They buy our Kenyan tea, they package it with their brand, and it is said and known that when you're taking a cup of Lipton tea, you're taking Indian or Asian tea, Mr. Speaker, but that's not so. Mr. Speaker, let me also support that bill because I know the farmers in Kiambu, in Lari, in Gatondo North, in Gatondo South, Mr. Speaker, in Limuru, and other parts of Kiambu, and the whole country, Mr. Speaker, have been waiting for a long, long time for this day, Mr. Speaker, when at least their voice can be heard. I hope, as one of my colleagues here said, that this can be a wake-up call to governors, that they now need to take this bill up once it has been passed so that they can rally our small-scale farmers and support them, Mr. Speaker, so that at the county government level, agriculture being a devolved function, that farmers then can start having their voice heard against the loud voice of the conglomerates, Mr. Speaker. When I was growing up in Kericho, Mr. Speaker, where Senator Cheriot comes from, there used to be a season, Mr. Speaker, when many people would migrate from other parts of the town, of the country, and come to Kericho. That was called bonus time.
Your time is up. Senator Ali Abdullahi Ibrahim.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I talk about the bill, I just want to send a message of condolences to a chief in my constituency who was beheaded. In Wajir County was beheaded by Al-Shabaab today. And his head was brought to one of the centers. These are the situations we are in. That said, Chair, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support the motion or as amended. Mr. Speaker, those of us, when you look at the way when the people in Kenya who are at the grassroots, who are working very hard, when you see the way they suffer and you see others, the way they behave, sometimes you even don't know what to say. Mr. Speaker, for me, I'm supporting this because of the local farmers. Me, I'm not a tea growing area. We don't have tea. We don't have a lot of agriculture, but we are the consumers of tea, Mr. Speaker. We need the tea leaves. We need the tea farmers. We need the sugar farmers. We need the maize farmers. This country, cartels have taken over everything, Mr. Speaker. And I want to urge the members of this House, they should not be very selfish. We need one another. And the way you need my vote today, I will need yours tomorrow. But this is not what happens in this House. I want to warn everybody that everybody is of the same importance in this House because of when we talk of livestock, when we talk of other issues, I want to be supported the way I'm supporting this now, Mr. Speaker. These are issues which are very important to most of us. When you talk of the locals, the people who really suffer, those ones who till the land, those ones who look after the animals, those are the people we should support, not those ones who are the top 10%. That should not be the way to go, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, where you when it's not only because of tea we need to talk about the coffee. As I said, we need to talk about the mung beans. We want to talk about the cabbages. We want to talk about the potatoes. We want to talk about the milk, so that all Kenyans feel happy. And when you take care of those ones at those lower levels, that is when Kenyans will feel that they are doing well, they are okay, they sleep well, their children go to school, that when they go to the hospitals, they are able to pay for everything they need. That is the only way. So I urge everybody and anybody who is in this field, who thought that they can just, eat alone. No, we want to share the benefits of this country with everybody, and I wish to support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Musuruve.
Honorable Speaker, first I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to support this bill. And I want to begin by thanking Senator Cheriot for coming up with these amendments. And Senator Cheriot is truly alive to the fact that tea farming has value addition. Honorable Speaker, I want to tell this House that when I was growing up and would visit my grandfather, my late grandfather, I remember that my great-grandfather, apart from being a teacher, he was also a tea farmer. Mzee Ruben Haguri educated all his children. I remember my aunties, my uncles on my father's side, they were educated through, tea farming. And I saw the value addition of tea farming when I was growing up. But all of a sudden, Honorable Speaker, the value slackened because of lack of management and because of, the fact that brokers had also gotten into the tea factory. But the clarion call of this bill is that we must support our tea farmers. And it is indeed our duty as senators to ensure that we support tea farmers. Honorable Speaker, tea farming has value addition if it is well managed, if it is well coordinated, and I'm happy because the board is there. The board is going to bring sanity to the tea industry because brokers have come in, farmers are depressed, farmers feel that no one is actually keen about them, but the board is actually going to ensure that we raise the standards of tea farming and we make it also attractive. Honorable Speaker, when I started working for the first time in 1990, as a teacher, I decided that I was going to gift my father, the Inima, with tea plantains, and I did that. And I'm happy because even right now, my mother, who is a widow, is able to benefit from the tea farming. So I want to encourage tea farmers that even if we support this bill, it is going to help them and bring value once more to the tea industry. And I want to encourage my fellow senators that we must support this bill so that our farmers are happy. May it be a boon. May it be a golden opportunity. May it be a Christmas gift to our farmers all over in Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much. I support.
Senator Langat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this opportunity to support this particular bill. I'm so happy, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I was among the ad hoc committee members, and I want to witness to this particular House and everybody outside there that all that in that bill is the contribution of the farmers in their various places in this country. We went to Kericho, we went to Nyamira with Kina Senator Omogeni, we went to Embu, and we listened seriously to the various issues that the farmers were raising. And I want to say thank you to Senator Cheriot, which eventually managed to make a bill out of the ad hoc committee issues that we collected all over. So I want to say that the farmers are looking forward to this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. So many are writing to us in social media to support it. And I want to say that this will be an eye-opener, that even other various crops will follow suit, and also they will come to be assisted. But I want to say that on matters to do with tea farming, we went to Tea Research Foundation in Kericho, which used to be a very admirable Tea Research Foundation, especially when it used to be East African Tea Research Foundation. And I want to tell you, to tell this House, Mr. Speaker, that that particular great institution, because of the present management and the policy that is existing in tea sector, is almost at coma. It's about to collapse. We went there, people, the research which used to take place is no longer taking place. People were giving us a lot of issues that they are facing currently, and that one spill over to the farmers. In fact, the tea farming, unless rescued by this particular bill, is in fact far much headed to a total collapse, simply because most of the farmers today, because of the inefficiency of Tea Research Foundation, are actually growing tea which are not of the standards as required at this particular time. So I want to support this particular bill and say congratulations to Senator Cheruyot. And I want to say, those are the institutions that have also issues to be addressed. This is not the end of everything. As Kipchumba Murkomen was saying, further amendments will be done to accommodate it. But as of now, let us secure this particular golden opportunity that this particular house and the other house has actually accorded to all of us. I want to thank everybody who has participated in making sure that this.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo, what's your intervention?
Speaker, it's usual practice that when somebody is invited to your gallery, you recognize them. There's a gentleman seated there, looks like Honorable Moses Kuria, I cannot tell, but you didn't recognize him. You didn't recognize him, and he looks like a stranger. So I was just wondering.
I had not seen him, and with the mask it even becomes more difficult. Is this Honorable Kuria? Oh, welcome to the Senate. Let's give him the normal welcome. Thank you so much. Senator Ochila Yako. Senator Wako.
Thank you, Chairman, for giving me this opportunity to talk on this very important bill. Once upon a time, when we were still at school, it is crops such as tea, coffee, pyrethrum that earned the country the highest number of foreign exchange. Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been very sad indeed to see that from that pedestal, we came now to a period where farmers were uprooting their crops, whether coffee and now even tea and so on. So I wish to congratulate the Senator of Kericho, the young man who initiated this bill, which we are now discussing, and which has gone through the process. I wish also to congratulate both the Senate and the National Assembly for, at least for once, working in a very cooperative manner on the issue of bills, so that the bill comes here, we debate it, it goes there, it's debated, it comes here, and so on, rather than foot dragging on this bill. So this provides a very good example. Mr. Speaker, sir, farmers have been exploited, not just in Kenya, but all over the world. Farmers are exploited. And therefore, a sensitive government such as ours, we look to see ways in which the farmer can be protected. And we can say that on the whole, this bill now protects the farmer. Mr. Speaker, sir, the money, the auction charges, we have been told, has now come from 1.5% to 0.75%. The KTDA and other management charges have come from 2.5% and now it's 1.5%, Mr. Speaker, sir. And more important, Mr. Speaker, sir, to me, is clause 24L, which provides for time limits within which payments must be made. It states here that the tea brokers, buyers, and auction organizers shall ensure that the proceeds from the sale of tea are remitted to the tea factories' accounts within 14 days. So, Speaker, sir, and the tea factory shall within 30 days remit at least 50%.
Your time is up, Senator. Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to say for the first time we agree with the National Assembly that in all instances they have brought amendments. And Mr. Speaker, the issue of amendments, I agree with my colleagues that some of the amendments might have gone to the heart and the soul of the initial bill. On the issue of introducing the new part of 24, I'm happy to note that on the functions of the board, Mr. Speaker, one of them has been to relook at the issue of taxes. You remember, Mr. Speaker, during tea served as one of the biggest with around 42 forms of taxation. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we have seen the issue of employing market strategy within the tea sector and ensuring that we have, I think another aspect and another issue is about tea research. Because, Mr. Speaker, the extension services within the tea community has not been not well elaborated, Mr. Speaker. But now with the tea research that has been put in place and within, so that will advise farmers on the quality, we now have even purple tea that is being embraced by farmers across the region. From Nandi County, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, I think Kericho is leading, followed by Nandi among other regions. And therefore, around 3 to almost the entire of Nandi, almost the 5 to 6 sub-counties out of 6 sub-counties of Nandi already have are planting tea. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of tea research, we would want to agree that there is need to support farmers in terms of extension services. Mr. Speaker, third point is that we are worried because some of us who come from region who depend on agri-economics, you see sugar sector has collapsed, and this is part of Chemase. You remember we had issues and it also affecting your county. Over 5 million Kenyans are suffering who are depending on sugar cane. We have issue of maize, milk, maize also, Mr. Speaker. I hope those are issues that we can already address. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of milk, we have already complained because one of the companies in this country, Mr. Speaker, controls 40%, but yet Competition Authority have done nothing in this country. Mr. Speaker, I agree that this is the right time for the tea farmers, the ordinary small-scale farmers, so that they can have, and I'm happy that the Chair of Agriculture has confirmed to me that any other issues that is pending, Mr. Speaker, can be addressed even during this recess where memorandum can be issued. We are not passing this bill because it's perfect, but we can believe we can go at some level and ensure that we perfectize as we proceed even to the other issues. So I think tea farmers in this country will have opportunity of having a regulatory regime and law that would try to address many other issues that we want to see in this sector, Mr. Speaker. I thank you very much.
Senator Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. Mr. Speaker, I nearly gave up. I thought on this very important topic I would not speak. Mr. Speaker, many years ago, some little lady with whom I was in school, she wasn't my girlfriend, joked that tea without sugar is like, or sex without love is like, or love without sex is like tea without sugar. There was that joke many years ago. And that joke, I did not believe in it, but I now believe in it. This tea thing is only good when we have sugar. And Mr. Chairman, who has been a friend of mine for many days, must bring the sugar one here. You know, many people talk about the benefits of tea, which I agree with. They talk about what we earn from tea, which I agree with. But there are many, many, many crops without which we would all be dead, and they don't bring money. Take, for instance, cassava. There are people who just feed on cassava. There are pastoralists who just take milk. There are fishermen who just eat fish. And they do not beg from anybody. So if you were to value how they feed their families, if you are to look at it from a food security perspective, you would really know that agriculture is the mainstay of the economy and our entire well-being. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Senator Arun Cheriot for thinking about tea farmers. But I also want him, and I want to ask him, to think about other farmers. This tea business, in my view, has been rigged and has been brought on a special sitting. Let's rig for other crops and for other activities that feed our people. We must not just look at tea and only tea alone. If we do not look at other crops like sugarcane, sugarcane is a major employer, is a major earner, or other crops that we don't even think of have brought up many people. Millet, people who are doing sweet potato, people like Professor Ongeri who depend on matoke. So what we really need to prioritize as a house is agriculture. And let us have special sitting after special sitting to discuss agriculture. And now that we are talking tea, let's remember that tea and sugar go together. In fact, very few of us take tea without sugar. So I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to congratulate those who are champions for tea, and I want to recruit them to be champions for sugar too, because tea and sugar go together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, honorable senators, unfortunately, we must bring this to a close. Because I told you we have a short set of time. Is that okay? Later you'll win the committee of the whole. Next order. Mover to reply.
I have written so much.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank all the senators who have Mr. Speaker, it is apparent that all the senators are overwhelmingly supporting this bill. Mr. Speaker, as we go to voting for the bill, I wish to appeal, because we are going to pass this bill today, I wish to appeal to the Ministry of Agriculture, as they constitute the board, the tea board, that they must learn from history that the Coffee Board of Kenya, the Coffee Board of Kenya is the one that actually virtually killed coffee in this country. How, Mr. Speaker? That the members of that board were also players in the coffee sector. They were traders in the sector. So we want, Mr. Speaker, and I am appealing that whoever is appointed, whoever we appoint in this board, in the tea board, there must be persons above reproach. There must be persons who are passionate about, tea, and who will take the concerns of the tea farmers at heart. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to address the various stakeholders who feel that they have or they are unsatisfied with the bill. Mr. Speaker, I know that you have received several petitions so far. And I am hoping, Mr. Speaker, that you assign those petitions to relevant committees. The ones that will come to my committee, I can assure the House that you will deal with them expeditiously. And Mr. Speaker, I am therefore appealing to all those stakeholders who feel affected by this bill and who are currently in the courts of law. With their concerns and expeditiously. Mr. Speaker, I do hope that all the petitions which lie on your desk, that you allocate them even during this recess, and we'll be able to look at them and look at the concerns of various stakeholders. And there are many, Mr. Speaker,
and their rights. And we should accommodate them one way or another. Mr. Speaker, yes, in furtherance of the tea sector, we cannot ignore that the county governments, agriculture being a devolved function, we have to work jointly with the county governments. Mr. Speaker, my committee had a session with the Council of Governors, with the Agriculture Committee of the Council of Governors. And we did meet in Mombasa, Mr. Speaker, and we raised several issues with the Council of Governors. And they also raised several issues which we intend at some later point to bring to this House. Mr. Speaker, I did read somewhere, Mr. Speaker, I did read somewhere in one of these papers that my committee was meeting with the Council of Governors to discuss this bill. There cannot be anything further from the truth. Mr. Speaker, this House, the Senate of the Republic of Kenya, its first priority is to safeguard devolution. And we are going to be meeting with the Council of Governors.
In low tones. Order, members. Order. Senator Pareno, what's your...
Speaker, I was just going to say that you intervened because we can hardly hear the response from our honorable senator.
There are also too many people on their feet. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Speaker, indeed I want to conclude and also inform the people who may have been misguided that this House, the committee of this House, cannot and should not meet with the Council of Governors, that they are thoroughly misguided. That happens to be our business. And Mr. Speaker, in furtherance of agriculture in this republic, my committee and the Council of Governors will be meeting quarterly to check on the progress of agriculture in this republic. So let people be informed that wherever you see us with the Council of Governors, we are not discussing personalities. Mr. Speaker, in my long time in politics, I do not discuss personalities. I have no interest in personalities. My business is the business of the Republic. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, once again, I want to thank all the senators for your beautiful contributions. And I really do hope that soon we will be looking at where we can amend other amendments after we have passed this bill. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, order, senators. Order, senators, take your seats. Pursuant to Standing Order number 79, this is not a matter affecting counties, so voting will be by acclamation, and I will therefore proceed and put the question with the National Assembly amendments to the Tea Bill, Senate Bill number 36 of 2018 be now considered. May as many of that opinion say aye. May any of a contrary view say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 4, Committee of the Whole, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Tea Bill, Senate Bill number 36 of 2018.
Is it one vote? Is it one vote to accept or reject? There's no amendment. It's not one vote. So somebody
just 2 seats.
Yeah. We'll use one seat.
Let them go through the reading.
Then you'll distribute where next. I have the things.
It's 2 votes, right?
No, one.
One. For the whole
We'll only vote in committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
But petition is a committee.
I'll just
Move, we will not do otherwise. So watu wamekuja hapa kufanya kazi. Huh? So we are now doing this one. Honorable Senators, we are now going to do consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the T-Bill, Senate Bills number 36 of 2018.
National Assembly amendment to clause 2.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 2 of the bill be approved. Chairperson, Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. There's no. There's no amendment.
There's no amendment. There's no amendment.
I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 2 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 5.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 5 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 5 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 6.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 6 of the bill be approved. Order, Senators. We are considering the amendments. I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 6 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 6 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 7.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 7 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 7 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 8.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 8 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 8 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 8.
Is it 8 or 9?
9.
9. I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 9 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 9 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 13.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 13 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 13 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 15.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 15 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 15 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 16.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 16 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 16 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 19.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 19 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 19 of the bill be approved. Division at the end.
New insertion of new part 3 on the regulatory provisions incorporating new clauses 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 up to 24X.
I propose a question that the deletion of part 3 incorporating clauses 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Insertion of new part 3 incorporating new clauses 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 to 24X be approved. I put the question that the deletion of part 3 incorporating clauses 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 and inserting of new part 3 incorporating new clauses 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 to 24X be approved. Division at the end.
Insertion of new part 3A on appointment of crop inspectors, incorporating clauses 24Y to 24ZB.
I propose the question that the insertion of the new part 3A incorporating clauses, what is that? Clauses 24Y to 24ZB be approved. I put the question that the insertion of new part 3A, including clauses 24Y to 24ZB, be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new part 3B on the establishment of T levy and T fund.
I propose the question that the insertion of new part 3B incorporating clauses 24ZC to 24ZD be approved. I put the question that the insertion of new part 3B incorporating clauses 24ZC to 24ZD be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new part 3C on the establishment of the T Research Foundation, incorporating clauses 24ZE to 24ZF.
I propose the question that insertion of new part 3C incorporating clauses 24ZE to 24ZF be approved. I put the question that the insertion of the new part 3C incorporating clauses 24ZE to 24ZF be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 25.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clauses 25 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 25 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 26.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 26 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 26 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 28.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 28 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 28B of the bill be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new part 4A on complaints and investigation procedure, incorporating clauses 29A to 29G.
I propose the question that the insertion of the new part 4A incorporating new clauses 29A to 29G be approved. I put the question that the insertion of the new part 4A incorporating clauses, new clauses 29A to 29G be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 30.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 30 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 30 be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 31.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 31 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 31 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 32.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 32 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 32 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 33.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 33 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 33 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 34.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 34 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 34 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 35.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 35 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 35 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 36.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 36 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 36 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 38.
I propose the question that National Assembly amendment to clause 38 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 38 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to clause 39.
I propose the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 39 of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to clause 39 of the bill be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new clause 32A.
I propose the question that the insertion of new clause 32A of the bill be approved. I put the question that the insertion of new clause 32A of the bill be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new clause 32B.
I propose a question that the insertion of new clause 32B of the bill be approved. I put the question that the insertion of new clause 32B of the bill be approved, division at the end.
National Assembly amendment to the schedule.
I propose a question that the National Assembly amendment to the schedule of the bill be approved. I put the question that the National Assembly amendment to the schedule of the bill be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new second schedule.
I propose a question that the insertion of the new second schedule of the bill be approved. I put the question that the insertion of the new second schedule of the bill be approved, division at the end.
Insertion of new third schedule.
I propose the question that the insertion of new third schedule of the bill be approved. I put the question that the insertion of the new third schedule of the bill be approved, division at the end. So it is now division by delegation, it's not by the vote again. So honorable senators, we shall then, having concluded with the amendments, we are supposed to proceed for division.
No. Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for that good work you have done. Madam Chair, I'm seeking the two directions from you, that we ring the bell for about 5 minutes. I also take this opportunity to urge my colleagues who are following this proceeding virtually to now be prepared to commence voting, to log in. And yeah, if there is any senator out there watching us, because I know there are many colleagues who need now to come in and start voting, because it's now the very last stage. And finally, give us directions that it is voting by delegation.
Yes, Senator Mutula.
Okay, I thought it was magic that I press one and the other one comes on. Chair, one, I agree with Senator Kangata, Whip, that you ring the bell for 5 minutes. The other concern I have is there should be direction on the voting. Are we voting clause by clause, or we are taking one vote for the entire? That clarification is important.
We will take one vote for all the amendments, but for now we can ring the bell for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you. Switch off this mic.